Taiwan's no currency manipulator, but a U.S. Treasury report says it still bears watching. Recall campaigners gear up for the final push to get lawmakers out of office.
できており着陸ができておりませんので、その着陸に関してはですね、失敗という、捉え方で問題ないかと思います。
Tokyo, we have a problem. A mission carrying Taiwan's first lunar probe doesn't stick the landing. Plus,
那台湾在蒋介石过世50年之后，整个台湾的岛屿上面都还是充满了以他命名的这个街道。
is renaming roads transitional justice or an expensive gesture? We look at a controversy surrounding the plan. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. The U.S. Treasury is once again flagging concerns over how some of its top trade partners handle their currencies and trade practices, dropping a new report on Thursday. While Taiwan was not labeled a currency manipulator, it is once again on the list of countries at risk of being deemed one, just as it's trying to handle exchange rate spikes and a U.S. trade deal. Chris Goring has more.
Taiwan is not being labeled a currency manipulator, at least not by the U.S. Treasury Department, which released a biannual report Thursday. But it's not off the hook either, being once again added to a monitoring list of countries that meet certain trade criteria. Those countries are China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, and Germany, all of which have been on the list before, plus 2 newcomers, Ireland and Switzerland. Taiwan has been on the list continuously since 2022 for meeting 2 out of 3 red flag indicators. It runs a big trade surplus with the U.S. and has a high current account surplus. But the Treasury says Taiwan did not manipulate its currency through foreign exchange intervention. But the U.S. trade deficit is a major concern for the Trump administration, and Taiwan has the 5th largest bilateral trade surplus, meaning it sells more to the U.S. than it buys in return, while China maintains the largest surplus. While Taiwan has avoided the harshest possible label, there's not exactly a sigh of relief here. Being on the monitoring list means tariff threats still linger, and the country has yet to finalize a trade deal with the U.S. And exporters remain uneasy, especially after a recent spike in the Taiwan dollar's exchange rate.
其实我们的客户基本上都比较大，那其实都有一定的长年以来都有一定的路去怎么去做一些跟汇率有关的一些调整。 所以对我们来讲，我们当然还是怕说，像前一阵子上个月出那种2天2、3块的哈。
That same company, Pegatron, an electronics manufacturer, is also planning to open a new factory in the U.S. to avoid potential tariffs. Taiwan's central bank responded this morning, saying the U.S. has not asked Taiwan to allow its currency to appreciate. But you can see how this combination of tariff and currency threats is keeping businesses on edge here. Luffy Lee, John Su, and Chris Gorin in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The clock is ticking for a mass recall campaign that aims to shake up Taiwan's legislature. Campaigners looking to unseat politicians from the opposition Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party say they're ready for a final push, but the opposition has plans of its own. Leslie Liao has this report.
The political showdown of the year is approaching. And while the dates are not set, the battle lines are drawn up. In a perfect storm scenario, nearly a third of lawmakers could face losing their seats in a mass recall campaign that has been going on for months. And while lawmakers from both ruling and opposition blocs are at risk, these campaigners looking to unseat opposition lawmakers say momentum is on their side. They believe they have the petition numbers to trigger recall votes on 31 Kuomintang lawmakers. Meanwhile, they don't believe petitions to put ruling DPP politicians on the recall ballot will pass the threshold. The campaigners at this press conference say that despite what it might look like, they are not partisans or even necessarily fans of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. They say theirs is a grassroots movement motivated by something other than party labels. A big name here today, China-sanctioned semiconductor tycoon Robert Cao explains.
我们这次罢免是公民团体看到国家陷入一个大的危机，这个危机就是国民党的党工跟他的立委结合了共产党，正在想消灭我们主权，把台湾变成另外一个香港。
Campaigners on the ground say even disillusioned Kuomintang supporters are signing to recall their own party's lawmakers.
是因为他们发现这个国民党跟他们以前认识的已经不一样了。以前的国民党犯错了，至少还会点点，现在不是硬凹，怎么样凹就是不会认错。
However, the clean sweep these organizers hope for is far from guaranteed. There's still time for the KMT to get its own recall campaigns rolling past the threshold, setting the stage for a fierce contest on both sides. In another part of Taipei City, a recall campaign against ruling DPP legislator Wu Peiyi is digging its heels in.
我们目前还有一个比较长的阶段需要努力啦，然后我们也是因为也剩最后一天了，那我们就尽量做，然后我们战斗到最后一刻。
On the eve of a crucial petition deadline, organizers here say they're going to keep their headquarters open all night to collect signatures.
我们要想说，就是希望大家，我们不管是支持者、中正万华的好朋友，还是任何人，想来这边跟我们聊聊天，然后坐在这边吃东西、喝东西，然后我们共同度过，用愉快心情共同度过这个罢免的最后一个晚上。
The unfolding contest is going to pit Taiwan's two political blocs head to head. And if these campaigners get their wish, a political earthquake is set to rock Taiwan's legislature. Alex Chen, Justin Wu, John Van Trieste, and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
A teacher has lost his Taiwanese status for obtaining a household registration document in China. It is the first such case since the government issued a new interpretation order in April. The Mainland Affairs Council, which governs relations with China, recently revoked the legal status of the teacher, surnamed Zhang, after he was found to have obtained a document for household registration in China in 2024. Under cross-strait regulations, Taiwanese people are barred from having household registration in China or risk losing their legal status in Taiwan. The council issued an interpretation in April detailing the Chinese documents that Taiwanese people are not allowed to hold.
那已经废止张立奇的台湾身份那未来他如果要来台湾，必须要依照两岸条例相关规定申请入境许可，并经过同意以后才能够入境。
The Mainland Affairs Council clarified that Taiwanese are allowed to hold Chinese documents that do not require household registration. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping discussed trade in Taiwan in a phone call Trump is hailing as very positive.
I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points, having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things.
Trump's more than hour-long call with Xi on Thursday focused mainly on trade. He said both leaders invited each other for state visits. A Chinese summary of the call said Xi warned against threatening moves on Taiwan and urged restraint on trade. The U.S. and China have been locked in a trade war, imposing tariffs on each other and raising tensions over rare earth minerals and Taiwan. On May 12th, the countries agreed to a 90-day deal to reduce some tariffs. Russia has launched a major missile and drone bombardment of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. The attack was in apparent retaliation for Ukraine's drone attacks on Russian air bases earlier this week. 4 people were killed in Kyiv, with dozens injured. Metro and train lines were also damaged. The barrage follows a warning from Russian President Vladimir Putin that Moscow would retaliate for Ukraine's attack, which damaged or destroyed 40 military aircraft. Hopes for a Japanese moon landing on Friday were dashed. Tokyo-based firm iSpace lost communication with its spacecraft, which likely crashed while making its descent. The firm was vying to make history with Asia's first commercial lunar landing, carrying Taiwan's first ever lunar device on board. Joy Sung has the latest from Tokyo.
A somber end to an ambitious lunar mission. Japan's iSpace says it has not been able to complete a moon landing. It's the firm's second attempt and comes just 2 years after its first go, which also ended with a loss in communication. iSpace CEO Takeshi Hakamada says as of 8 a.m. local time, 4 hours after the planned touchdown, the team determined that reconnecting with the lander was unlikely.
着陸ができておりませんので、その着陸に関してはですね、失敗という、捉え方で問題ないかと思います。ご支援をいただいてきた方に対してですね、非常に、申し訳ない気持ちもございますけども、やはりこの今までご支援をいただいてきたですね。
The unmanned lander, dubbed Resilience, was vying to become Asia's first commercial spacecraft to make it to the moon. So far, only 2 American firms, Intuitive Machines and Firefly Aerospace, have accomplished the feat. Earlier, over 500 people gathered here to watch Resilience's descent, including a team from Taiwan. Dr. Lauren Chang from National Central University and his students have a direct role in the mission as the makers of this device that's aboard the Japanese lander. It's a radiation probe and Taiwan's first ever lunar instrument. iSpace's flight data showed Resilience's altitude dropping suddenly a few moments before the scheduled landing of 4:17 a.m. local time. The room falling into several minutes of silence as those gathered awaited confirmation. iSpace was later able to confirm that the measurement of Resilience's altitude was delayed, which meant its actual position was closer to the moon than the team thought. On top of that, the spacecraft was also traveling too fast.
ミッション1と同様かっていうところでいうと、見られている現象としては違うものが見られています。ただ原因のところはこれからまだまだ探っていく必要がありますので、現時点ではその実際のこの同じ要因だったかとかっていうのは言及することはできないんですけれども、見えている現象としてはミッション1とは少し異なるような現象が見えております。
But as to what exactly those phenomena were, iSpace says it will take time to look at the data and did not say when they'd be able to determine the root cause of the failure.
Despite iSpace now having 2 failed lunar missions, it's not giving up. They say they'll be analyzing the data to figure out what went wrong and apply those lessons to future missions like those already in the works. So a setback here, but not yet an end to iSpace's hope of making the moon more accessible, a goal that many companies and countries are racing to hit. Ethan Chen and Joyce Zen in Tokyo for TaiwanPlus.
As you heard there, Resilience was carrying Taiwan's first ever lunar device. It's called the Deep Space Radiation Probe, or DSRP, and was made by students from a research university in northern Taiwan. While in Tokyo, Joyce Zheng spoke with Dr. Lauren Zhang, the professor who led the project.
We've been following the DSRP right from when the design qualified for the mission and up to now here in Tokyo. What do you make of the mission outcome?
I would say for us it's a net positive, and we were very successful in doing things we hadn't done before. We built a payload that is capable of operating between the Earth and the Moon and even way out beyond the Moon, up to 110 million kilometers away from the Earth. That's a very difficult environment to operate in, and there's not a lot of radiation data from that region. We've already started the data analysis, and we've seen a lot of interesting features that we're very eager to share with the community.
Obviously not the overall mission outcome that we wanted, but in terms of the DSRP, how did it perform? Were there any unexpected circumstances?
Well, our most key goal was to be able to measure the radiation dose and its effect on electronics between the Earth and the Moon. We accomplished this. At the same time, we also wanted to implement this using a student team, which we also did. In terms of unexpected things, yes, almost every step of the way. But I think as anyone who's worked in space can attest, unexpected things are pretty normal in this field. The important thing is to do the analysis, figure out what went wrong, and figure out how you can correct it. And I'm very proud of our team in that we've done this every step of the way throughout the entire project.
And what have you and your students learned from this experience?
We've learned to build a payload that can travel way out even beyond the moon. We've figured out how to do it with very limited resources in terms of size, in terms of power consumption. For us, it's demonstrated that if we put our minds to it, if we figure out a way of recovering from from unexpected events, we can really push the boundaries. We've built Taiwan's first payload to venture out of low Earth orbit, and of course the first one to function both at the moon and also even further than the moon. And these are all major milestones and things that we've learned. So for us, the next challenge is to figure out what to do next.
That was Dr. Lauren Zhang from National Central University. Amazon is betting big on Taiwan, planning to invest over $5 billion here. The online giant made the announcement as it launched its AWS Asia Pacific Taipei region on Thursday. Amazon says the investment is part of its long-term commitment to the country, supporting the construction, operation, and maintenance of its data centers here. National divide is growing over a government plan to rename hundreds of roads across Taiwan that are named after former authoritarian leader Chiang Kai-shek. It has renewed a long-standing debate within the country about how to deal with its checkered past. Cadence Garanta looks into what is at the core of the issue.
All across Taiwan, there are hundreds of roads with this name, Zhongzheng. They're named after Taiwan's former president Chiang Kai-shek, who is also known as Jiang Zhongzheng in Mandarin, and whose legacy is deeply divisive. Recently, they've been the subject of renewed debate in Taiwan. Taiwan's Interior Ministry says it wants to rename these roads in an effort to rid the country of symbols of its authoritarian past, and as part of broader efforts towards transitional justice.
转型正义呢，其实是一个人权的问题。既然是人权的问题的话，我们就要严肃的对待。如果有困扰的话，那大概就是要中央政府、地方政府还有在地的居民能够有共识，我们再来推动。
Jiang and his nationalist party, known as the Kuomintang, retreated to Taiwan from mainland China in 1949 as they were losing to the communists in the Chinese Civil War. For decades, Jiang ruled Taiwan under martial law, cracking down on dissent and restricting freedoms. Thousands of people were executed during this time, and more than 100,000 were imprisoned. Since then, Taiwan has been grappling with how to handle this history, especially under the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, setting up a temporary transitional justice commission in 2018, overturning thousands of political convictions, removing symbols of authoritarianism like statues of Jiang, and paying compensation to victims and their families. But many remnants of Jiang's rule still remain.
转型正义它很大的一个概念就是要去面对国家威权统治时期过去所造成的各种不论是伤害或者是遗绪嘛哈，就是那中正路啊或者是铜像基本上就是一个威权遗绪。
The Interior Ministry says that transitional justice legislation passed in 2017 legally obligates the renaming of these streets. But the idea is facing backlash from many members of the Kuomintang, now Taiwan's main opposition. The backlash is not surprising, as transitional justice has always been a divisive issue in Taiwan, often along party lines. In the past, the KMT has criticized the DPP's attempts to remove symbols of Jiang as trying to erase history and ignore the former leader's contributions to Taiwan. This time, many speaking out are focused on how much such a project could cost taxpayers.
光是前期的行政作业费呢，初估就要110万，而这些只是行政作业费而已，还不包含招牌更新、地震登记修改以及企业与商号营业登记异动，还有物流以及最重要的地图系统的同步调整。这些都是看不到的成本，而这些成本林林总总加起来，绝对是超过100万的成本。
In New Taipei City, a so-called blue municipality with 22 Zhongzheng roads, local officials have estimated it may cost over $2 million to rename them. The Interior Ministry has promised to communicate with local governments before pushing the plan further, and also said it could help with funding. But the backlash has continued.
I'm on a Zhongzheng road in Taipei right now. You can see the street sign right behind me. And around me are lots of shops, restaurants, businesses who may all have to get their addresses or registrations changed if the street name changed. The KMT is actually arguing that over 160,000 people in Taipei alone would be affected.
Along this street, public opinion is divided.
没有必要，浪费公帑，浪费时间，就一个名称而已，习惯就好了。
我觉得我心里很赞成改这个中正路，因为这是以前威权时代的象征，是某个人的人名。可是呢，因为要改这个东西很劳民伤财，要花很多的钱，因为我们有好多个中正路，全省台语是我的母语。那以前那种威权时代不可以讲台语，对我们来讲是一种很大很大的一种统治、高压统治啊，很不喜欢。所以我觉得这个中正这个名字给我很不好的感觉。
Amid the turmoil, Taiwan's premier has spoken out, saying that road renaming is the responsibility of local governments and that the executive branch does not have any plans at the moment to push the change across the country. Nevertheless, the debate has meant the issue of transitional justice is once again on the agenda in Taiwan, as the country continues its work to address historical injustices amid different interpretations of the past and what figures like Chiang Kai-shek mean to Taiwan today. Chris Ma and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Once a bustling town even more important than Taipei, Lukang on Taiwan's west coast has long faded from the spotlight. But now a local family's effort to restore their 19th century home is helping bring new life and pride back to this historic town. Millie Hughes reports.
这个是一个 bathroom， 小时候我都在这边洗澡，好大一间，很冷。
Xu Zhengyuan is from one of Lukang's oldest and most prominent families.
祖先应该是在清朝的时候，从第26世的祖先就来到台湾。那我是第33世，所以来台湾也已经好几百年了。
Once a bustling international trading hub, this historic town on Taiwan's west coast has long faded from the spotlight. Rapid urban development passed Lukang by. No highways, no train stations. Even its once thriving port was eventually filled in. Today, much of its former glory has faded. What remains, now a rare sight in Taiwan. Centuries-old Qing dynasty architecture, like Xu Zhengyuan's ancestral family home, the Changyuan Hospital. Built in the early 19th century and expanded during Japanese colonial rule, it's part Chinese mansion, part Japanese villa, a truly rare architectural structure that was once filled with life, as both a family home and medical clinic.
小时候这个房子就是我们一群小孩子玩来玩去的，祖父祖母总共有10个内外孙，我每天在这边捉迷藏跑来跑去，楼上楼下。
But like Lukang itself, the home slowly faded from view, left untouched for more than 2 decades, quietly tended to by the family's 98-year-old matriarch. And taking care of a 200-year-old mansion was no easy task.
破掉即马就漏水吼，漏水就白蚁就来安尼，足头痛呢。
As their home fell into disrepair, the family faced a tough decision. Was it worth saving? They worried that applying for a restoration grant would leave them trapped in red tape.
那在很多亲戚朋友都有很多很不好的经验了，就是一旦排队下去，有时候排个10年、20年不一定排得到。那房子不但不能修，又连动都不能动。
So to navigate the government paperwork, they sought help from a local restoration team.
你如果拿到政府补助，你肯定要有相对应的这样子的一些公益项目，对。就是你要有一些不管是活动啊、讲座啊、展览啊，给大家，或是把你家的这个一些历史的独特细节的部分给大家看，会让大家知道。我会觉得，就是长源医院其实有各个层面，包含我们自己刚刚看到，从建筑、从医疗史、从摄影史，还有在对于地方上的这样子的一个空间上的论述来讲，它其实都在一个很重要的位置。
Inside, the family uncovered a treasure trove, antique medical tools, vintage furniture, hand-painted murals, and decades of family photographs taken by Xu Zhengyuan's late father, a respected photographer in Taiwan, known for his portraits of Lukang.
我那时候就想说，这些都可以拿来展览了，房子整修完之后就可以拿来展览。
So the family decided to bring the community into their home, creating a museum that contributes to Lukang's cultural revival.
写计划书的内容也要提到说，你房子修好之后要准备怎么用。所以我们在跟那个维修团队在讨论的时候，就有把这个概念写进去。
After 2 years, the funding was approved, and restoration began in 2020. Qing-era features, tiled roofs, wooden beams, hand-painted murals were meticulously recreated to meet strict grant requirements. The restoration itself is also part of the exhibit, which opens to the public in June.
大家来参观啦，吼，来参观啦呢。
For the Xu family, restoring Changyuan Hospital wasn't just about preserving their own legacy. It was about returning something to the town they've called home for generations. By turning their family home into a community space, they are helping Lukang breathe new life into its old streets, honouring the past while meeting the needs of today. Andy Xue, Bryn Thomas and Millie Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Before we go, let's take a look at this sensory art installation in Paris. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.